Know the difference between lean and agile development? Well, find out next right here on IT Pro TV.
You're watching IT Pro TV.
Welcome again to IT Pro TV. You're watching the Cisco DevNet Associate Show. We are about to take a look at, well, lean development here. And here to help us out is going to be Mr. Justin Dunson. Justin, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Ronnie. I'm having a great day today.
All right, so Justin, let's just go ahead and dive right in. What do we mean by lean development here?
Well, you have to run the whole time. That way you can stay fit and trim. I'm joking. I will tell you, I'm going to oversimplify this. And again, I'm going to call out to one of our coworkers, Joe. She would yell at me if she heard what I'm getting ready to say. But I'm trying to keep it simple just so we have a perspective for comparison when preparing for the DevNet Associate or possibly integrating with a team that employs these. So lean development, I would say it's more or less agile, right? It's about working with agility, but part of that agility comes through a particular set of values, like they manifest in a different way. It was adapted from Toyota production systems. So this came out of manufacturing. So the lean process came out of manufacturing. So Toyota would build assembly line things. I actually have a relative that worked at Toyota, and he would talk about making sure, like, I'm putting in a back seat. Well, if I have a team, what's the average time to put in a back seat? Or what's the minimum time to put in a back seat? It's not your best team member. It's actually your slowest or possibly newest one. But by doing that, you have an appropriate metric to measure against, and you can make improvements for the whole team and maximize utilization of your resources. However, right, it came out of that manufacturing, which seems to be the core set, but it can get a little dicey. It seems like there's a little bit of a divergence within the community because there's either the 7 lean principles or the 12, depending on whose lean you're following. The Popendiex, if I'm mispronouncing that, I'm very sorry, or the Popendiex, they have the 7 principles. Wherever there was a paper written by Dr. Sherritt about the 12 principles that were supposed to be analogous to the 12 principles of Agile. So that's kind of where we stand in lean. I think it's probably best if we just take a look at those 7 principles that seem to be the more commonly accepted ones. Lean software development, or lean kind of processes in general. I want to eliminate waste, right? I don't want individuals standing around if possible. I don't want to cut a part out of a piece of metal right out of the middle where I can't maximize my utilization. Now, I'm using manufacturing there because it was adapted from manufacturing, but likewise, I don't want to buy 17 computers when I have 4 people working. That just doesn't make sense, right? In addition to, you don't want to have scope creep or having individuals do something that they're maybe not the most qualified to do. Take, for instance, Ronnie and I. I would probably be a horrible, let's see if I can get that to scroll up there. Oh, well, it's not going to, there we go. Whew, that was getting a little dicey there myself. I would not take Ronnie and I and put us on a project and go, all right, Ronnie, so you're building the user interface. All right, Justin, you're setting the network infrastructure up. That doesn't sound right. That's what you're doing. Okay, it's going to take us twice as long or 3 times as long because Ronnie has to get a whole new skill set. I got to get better at the skill set I have in order to make this happen. But if you switched our roles, boom, we'd have been good, right? In addition to that plays into the second one. Make sure you have quality, right? You're going to work a little bit, validate, fix, and iterate. This is where that agility comes in. Hey, is this right? Is this happening correctly? Oh, we need to change something, shift, and do it again. Now, if we go back with the Ronnie being the UI person and Justin being the network individual, the quality would probably suffer horribly on both divisions because even if we employed the work, some, validate, fix, and iterate, how do I validate? Who's validating? Right? Is Ronnie validating himself or am I validating Ronnie? Well, if I'm validating Ronnie and I'm at a higher, more strict part of validation, then his cycles are going to take longer, but it still may be very difficult for him to achieve the same quality as I would. Likewise, if he's validating me in my network design, my implementation, he's going to go, no, you can't do, it'll work, but that's not a great way to go about it. Now, you go, okay, well, you picked the right person for the job. That makes sense. But you also need to create knowledge. At some point, if we're working on teams, we should have this collective pool of knowledge to where maybe I become as adept as Ronnie at networking, and maybe Ronnie becomes as adept at development as I am, right? So now we kind of, I thought of a word that I don't, we are synergistic in nature. Ooh, nice. Corporate synergism. I had to say it because some people were thinking it. We're going to do a little bit, reflect on it, and say, okay, Ronnie does this, Justin does this, we have this collective knowledge. Are they improving? If we go back to the manufacturing, right, how long does it take to put this part on or to assemble this thing, right, widget? Well, it took us 43 seconds. Okay, that's a baseline. What's our goal? How can we make it better? Let's do an analysis. Oh, well, it seems that we're having to reach this weird way. And what if we shifted this around? Oh, we got to 41 seconds. Boom, 2 seconds, right? You go, well, 2 seconds isn't a lot. Yeah, but if you're building 1,000 things a day, that's 2,000 seconds, which is what, about 40 minutes saved in a day? Which means increased in production, you're eliminating waste, and ideally, if you're doing it in a more ergonomic, better way, hopefully, then your quality should also remain at least consistent, okay? Now, the manufacturing, it makes sense there. The creative knowledge, it tends to be more of an abstract thing. It's not as much of a tangible. But along with these, I'll tell you, Ronnie, I have some issues with commitment. I like this next one, defer commitment. I'm going to start. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to make changes. And then at the last minute, I go, this is what we can provide. I like, it's kind of like a just-in-time thing. Because just in time, here's what I'm going to give you. Reason I like this, other than the joke about commitment, is I have worked on projects where we have made promises like 2 years in advance and go, on this day, we will deliver X, Y, and Z. We know nothing else. I did some research at a graduate in grad school that worked like that. It ended up being, it ended poorly, by the way. I did some software projects where, yeah, we can do that. I go, what are you talking about? You're making promises that we have no idea if we can even come close to keeping. If we'd have started and said, well, here's where we are right now, and then as it approached to a milestone date, you go, here's what we can provide at that date. I think it sets expectations appropriately. Now, along those same lines, you don't want to take forever. You want to make sure that you are at full capacity. You don't want people standing around. You don't want idle resources. Delivering quickly actually plays into eliminating waste and kind of that commitment thing as well, right? So these kind of intermingle. But the only way you can keep capacity, eliminate waste, making sure knowledge is building is you got to be respectful of each other. I can't browbeat Ronnie and expect him to get better at something that I'm pretty good at, right? You have to be supportive instead of, well, you're not doing it right. You know, you can do it that way, but instead, what if you did it this way? Those are the exact same thing, just the wording kind of dictates how Ronnie's going to react, and likewise, how I would react. Now, if you're one of those people that can kind of brush that off, that's fine, but we are human beings. By and large, that becomes difficult. So make sure you respect people. And then, as you're doing these small little parts, make sure everything you're doing is not being detrimental to the whole, because even if you make one part better, but then everything as a whole suffers, I'm kind of out of frame here. There we go. Everything as a whole suffers, then you don't want to do that, right? Maybe it's better to have that one piece dial back a little bit so our whole can continue on. So those are the 7 principles. Dr. Charrette's 12 principles kind of embody the same thought process, but they're analogous to the 12 principles of Agile.
Yeah, so Justin, as you were going through that, it actually kind of made me remember where the beginning process of this come from, which is the idea of trying to eliminate waste, right? So the idea of lean seems to be more of let's make sure that we can reduce down and make sure we can deliver things more quickly. Agile seems to be more about flexibility, but also producing a product. But that's not so much about the idea of eliminating waste. So when we start talking about that, there's choices then. So why would we choose something like this for a team?
So I think it really comes down to, for these two flavors, there are some things on the market that actually cast lean as an agile framework. Like lean is a way of being agile. There's some overlap, but ultimately I find there to be some subtleties. The elimination of waste, right? You're trying to make sure the bottom line is just so, all the while making sure you respect people. That's good. There's nothing about self-organization or simplicity, or there is a little bit about flexibility, but that's to make sure that you can eliminate waste, you make sure you have the appropriate quality and everybody's getting trained up. Personally, and other people may have different views, I tend to, what is the core principles that you most identify with? If respecting people and making sure the bottom line is good, then maybe lean is an appropriate thing. Or if you have more of a manufacturing kind of, assembly line, right? Even if it's a software product, you may have assembly, or technological products, you may have like an assembly line type thing. Lean may be more appropriate. But if you have kind of this nebulous thing and you go, I don't know, maybe you just stay with a modified, more agile, abstract view where you go, I'm going to be agile. I don't know what that's necessarily going to manifest like.
So, Justin, it also sounds like that both these principles, we're talking about agile or lean, since we're on this one, we talked about working on projects alone previously as well. But this more seems like a team process. Would we ever choose lean for doing anything alone on a project?
I thought about this a great deal. You could create possibly a contrived way to employ this personally, but eliminating waste and deferring commitment, that's fine. But respecting people, how would you embody that if it's just, I don't know, maybe you're like self-deprecating and you browbeat all the time. You're like, oh, you're horrible. But it's really hard to reflect, create knowledge alone. You could still adapt to some of these and try to embody these, or maybe even practice these. I tend not to get super rigid in personal projects, or if it's an individual project, mainly because it becomes more burdensome than it is helpful, at least in my experience.
All right, so Justin, even though we've kind of learned now a little bit more about agile and lean, you had mentioned waterfall. Can you help us to compare all three of those?
Lean and agile, right? Okay, maybe they're the different sides of the same coin. Or maybe lean is just a way to be agile, depending on how you frame that. Waterfall, not so much. Waterfall kind of is an older thing where you have very strict milestones and goals, and, well, maybe I'm getting a little deep. We should probably let you just tinker with that a little bit. Come on back, take a little deeper dive into waterfall so I can give you the full version of my contempt for a strict waterfall in the next episode.
All right, Justin, that sounds like an idea, so make sure you do come back and tune in for that episode. But for us right now, we're signing off. For IT Pro TV, I'm your host, Ronnie Wong.
And I'm Justin Dennison.
Stay tuned right here for more of your Cisco Certified DevNet Associate Show.
Thank you for watching IT Pro TV.